What's up, family? Welcome to Dare to Discuss, the space where we say the things that other people are too scared to. I'm your host, Thatbaldbrutha, and this show is for people who want the real. No sugarcoating, no pandering, just raw, unfiltered conversations about relationships, culture, and some of the tough truths in the Black community. Now, I'm not sure if you've seen or heard about this video going around lately where this podcast hosted by Black men were discussing their relationships, and somehow they got onto the topic of whether or not they are in love with their wives. And to everyone's surprise, they're saying that they are not in love with their wives. Now, I don't know about you, but when I first saw that video and heard about it, I was like, wait a minute. Don't we need to be in love with the person we're marrying? I mean, doesn't it make sense to be in that space? I don't know. What do you think? But don't want to judge too quickly. I want to go through the video with you. Let's talk about it and see what they're saying and try to understand their perspectives. Okay? Let's get into it.
I remember I went to counseling and the therapist asked, "What are you waiting for?" And I was like, "I'm waiting on a feeling." I was like, I don't know. Something just
it's like an 80s rock song.
Something just feels off. And I was like, I don't know. She was like, well, what are you waiting on? I was like, I'm waiting on a feeling. I feel like I don't have the feeling that I need to have in order to do what I feel the situation it requires.
So the first thing he mentions is the therapist asking the question, what are you waiting for? And my mind immediately went to, maybe he's not moving as a married person would move. Maybe he's not thinking like a married person. Maybe he's still operating from a single person's mindset, right? Now understand that when you go out to get married to somebody, you're making a commitment to that person, and you are now accepting the fact that the person you were before you took those vows is no longer the same person that's going to be operating going forward. People talk about losing themselves when it comes to relationships and marriage. And I get that it's a cliche, but the reality of it is, yes, to some degree, you do lose some of who you were, because understanding that you're operating for most of your life, most of your adult life anyway, as a single person. So when you decide to get married, you are putting the single mindset aside and now focusing in on being that marriage person. Then he said, I'm waiting for a feeling. That spoke to maybe he has some idea in his mind of what exactly he expected marriage to feel like. And he's like, I don't feel that. So because I don't feel that, maybe I'm not supposed to be moving in a space or moving in that way until I get that feeling.
What I did not realize then that I do now was I'll never feel it.
Bruh, pause. That right there.
Yeah.
Wait on the feeling, you ain't never gonna feel it. No.
You're gonna never feel it.
No. Cause I don't know what to call it.
Some bullshit storybook.
It's a life challenge. It's a life goal.
Yeah.
And it's a life union.
Now, did you catch that? Some stories book bullshit fantasy, right? So what I'm picking up from that part of the conversation is that, like most of us, we watched those stories and read those books as we were children, and everybody lived happily ever after. And whenever marriage came up, it was always some knight in a shining armor or some very brave and courageous man coming along and swooping the woman off her feet. But they never talked about the actual work it takes when two human beings come together as one and live together and cohabitate and try to exist. We never learned about the hardships, the aches, the pains, the stressing that goes into committing yourself to another person for a lifetime.
The reason why I'm using this analogy to this person on the other side is because that's literally how I look at it. I literally see a James in the distance that requires sacrifice from the current James. And I have to get to that motherfucker.
I feel you.
There.
I feel you. I feel that.
And there's shit that I don't want to do today. That's the future motherfucker saying, you gotta do it.
Yep.
You gotta do it.
Why did sacrifice? Why is that the first time that word came up? That's what it
Because
is.
his lifestyle. I mean, he's sacrificing a
Bruh,
lifestyle.
but I
he
said
was doing.
surrender. It's that, but it's sacrifice.
When you think about marriage, what do you envision first? You're thinking about two people, or likely thinking about two people that get along great, know each other so well, are so deeply in love. Everything is bliss, cherry blossoms, and all kinds of music playing in the background. We have this very utopian paradise, Garden of Eden type imagery that pops into our head, right? And that's because that's what we learn as children, right? We saw that on TV. You still see it to this day, for the most part, a lot of times on TV, especially for kids. You see these happy endings. And the reality that we learned as we got older is that life isn't that simple. Relationships aren't that simple. It's a very complicated situation. And a lot of times, what also plays a factor in all this is our ego, right? We don't want to let go of the person we believe we are, right? So we want to hold on to that image of ourselves at no matter what the cost. We're even opposed to hearing the word sacrifice, because that's a very important aspect of being in a committed relationship. You're going to have to sacrifice some things. You're going to have to sacrifice some activities you were doing when you were single. You can't go into a marriage or relationship expecting to move the same way you did when you were single. And a lot of times, because people don't appear or choose not to understand the dynamics of a relationship, this is why we face the divorce rate we face, the trials and tribulations that most relationships can avoid if they just took the time to understand the game, to look at the board and understand what you're getting yourself into before you walk down somebody's aisle and say, I do.
When the gaze is outside is where you're off. When you're talking about societal pressure, when you're talking about family, when you're talking about the woman, it ain't even about her. I will tell you this, bro, until I fucking die. This ain't based on nothing but ourselves.
Yep.
And so the person you are surrendering to is the future you. That's who you're surrendering to.
Yep.
Not the bride, not the anything else. So we have patterns that we've been demonstrating, muscles that we've been fucking working out for 48 years. Fucking this bitch, fearful, succumbing to this. And so we got these muscles, these emotional and spiritual muscles that are hyper developed, that is preventing us from doing other shit.
Yeah.
And then you got another muscle that's fucking atrophy, basically, which is trust, which is grace, which is this shit that we have very little fucking practice of doing. Patience,
Yep.
acceptance, that we gotta exercise those too. And that is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's what you surrender to, the process of the discomfort, because the other person on the other side needs those muscles exercised.
Now think about that for a moment, where he mentioned that whole thing about muscles being atrophied because of a lack of grace, patience, understanding, compassion, trust. Those are all things that get damaged, sometimes removed or eliminated because of past trauma. And when you're hurt, it's very hard to exercise those muscles when it comes to dealing with people, especially relationships. Because why? Because you're trying to protect yourself from getting hurt again, right? So you're reluctant to do that because of the fear of getting hurt by somebody else. So when he's saying that he's resisting to all that, it's very uncomfortable. As I said, this is what it's about. Embracing the fact that these very things that are now atrophied, to use his word, are the very things you need to give your partner in the relationship, in the marriage. And if you haven't come to terms with that prior to getting married, that's an issue, right? So these are all conversations that should be being had prior to you getting engaged and getting married. Understanding, being self-aware. Okay, are you in a space mentally prepared to handle the ebb and flow that is naturally going to happen in a relationship? And it sounds like he's trying to say that he was not ready for that. And oftentimes we rush off and get married. I'm guilty of it too. And you get involved in relationships and marriages, and you realize, you know what? I didn't take this I didn't really fully grasp all the responsibility, all that will be asked of me. So now I'm trying to aspire to be that person, to work up to the person that I believe that, as he said, the future self, so that you can fit that goal and accomplish giving that person what they deserve as their mate. If we want to change that dynamic, we want to get that conversation going and go another direction and have a better chance of having more sustainable relationships, you got to start with those kind of conversations about self-awareness. Do you even understand where you're coming from traumatically? Have you even tried to address situations that you're dealing with, the trauma? Have you tried to resolve it? Have you gone to therapy of any kind trying to address the problems? Have you even talked about it with your mate to find out, okay, what are you dealing with? What did you go through? So I understand where you're coming from. It'll help me to understand how you're going to respond in situations or why you are responding in different circumstances. And then by me sharing in return, you get a glimpse as to what to expect from me in a similar situation.
We can't get off this subject. I gotta ask you a question. Are you in love with your wife?
No.
Me either. What?
I don't believe in that shit anyway. It's
Okay.
it's overrated.
No, I'm not in
Listen,
love.
Then why?
listen.
Okay.
See.
Y'all need to explain that shit to me then.
I had a feeling. No, I'm not in love with her.
Why?
I don't even know her.
What are
7
y'all
years.
doing? Why?
This is our 8th. Hold on, we got married in 2016. This is year number 8. September 8th, we'll be married 8 years. No.
So this is the clip. This is the one where they said they're not in love with their wives, and this is what's going viral. And he later mentioned the fact that he doesn't know his wife. They've been together for 8 years, and he doesn't know her, so of course he's not in love with her. But then that begs the question, at what point, how many years have to pass before you could say you do know her? Because I get where he's coming from, right? You don't know somebody really until you spend time with them, until you live with them, all those things. But the reality also is people are continually to evolve. Once you get married, you don't stop growing as a person. So you're always going to be getting to know your partner up until the day they die. Now, having a relatively good understanding of who they are prior to getting into marriage with them, yeah, you can get that from a few years or a few months or whatever you decide is enough for you, right? It's all subjective. But the truth of the matter is, you knew enough to get married to her. Now, the other guy, James, said he doesn't even believe in being in love. He think it's all a construct made up in bullshit, right? And I disagree with that. I think that you can find someone that you can love unconditionally, who does the same for you in return. I still believe that if you're going to be with somebody forever and commit to them, it has to be more than just love. It can't be just that, in my opinion, because that's not going to keep things together. It's not going to be enough. And if you're spending your time being married to somebody and you're still getting to know them and you feel like you're not in love with them, then why did you get married? You should have waited a little longer to make sure you felt 100% sure of this person. Because what that says to me is that you don't believe that the person that you can be with the person forever. You may be committed to them, but at some point in time, you may feel like I just don't feel the love. So if I don't feel it, I can't be in it. And to me, that feels like if you're going to go that route, then you might as well go ahead and just perpetually date for the rest of your life rather than you bother getting married. Because I mean, and that's how I was raised, that you want to be in love with somebody that you marry.
And my wife thinks she's in love with me, probably. If someone asked her, she'd say, yeah. Bullshit. Drake can take my wife.
But what would she say if she heard you say that you're not?
Okay, so you were on a podcast in 2012 with me, with JR. So you were on with 2 girls and JR.
I remember this.
Okay. My wife was upstairs listening to it on the radio, and I was downstairs on my computer. They said, "Is your wife your soulmate?" And I said, "No." My wife was upstairs listening.
Oh, shit.
Right? The reason why I was keeping it 100% real was because she's not. She's not.
Yeah.
Now, right here, he says, we're in a relationship with ourselves, which I don't necessarily disagree with. What I will say is that in addition to that, yes, you are in that with yourself, but you are also in one with your mate, because you're learning about yourself and you're learning about the other person as well. That's what being in a marriage is about. You're still learning about each other. You're growing together independently, but also as in unison. Because again, like as I said in the beginning, You're letting go of who you were as a single person and moving into a mindset of now it's no longer about me, it's about we. Yes, we do walk around with an understanding in our mind of this picture perfect idea of what a relationship or marriage should look like. But are we able to achieve that? No. And that's the other thing that's really disheartening, is because what happens is when we get to that place of we're trying to be perfect, we get discouraged when we don't achieve it. And then that's when the resentment builds up and the frustration builds up, and you start feeling like you can't be in this space because you are placing unrealistic expectations on your partner to somehow meet your requirements to fulfill the fantasy you've cooked up in your head. And more times than not, these are requirements that they don't even know about because you didn't bother to tell them. Again, with the communication piece. Are you hearing what I'm saying right now? See, it's not fair to your partner or your mate to charge them with the responsibility of making you happy. Your job is to come in already happy. They are to add to your happiness, not to become your happiness, not to be left with holding the bag of making sure you stay happy all the time. This is why it's important to do all that self-work in the beginning prior to getting married, so you can avoid some of these little headaches and pitfalls. And going back to the communication piece, when it comes to how well you're going to know somebody, well, it's really going to depend on how open and honest you are with them. Are you going to share everything with them? If you're not comfortable being open and honest and transparent with them, then it's going to take a lot longer for you to get to know them. Because you have to also, in my opinion, you have to kind of lead by showing that person, this is what I am going to give you, and I expect it in return. You set the standard and the boundaries of the relationship by saying, yeah, we're not going to have any secrets. Everything has to be out there. We're going to have conversations, and sometimes tough conversations, right? Because you want to understand where the person's coming from. You're not there trying to rehash bad feelings and past trauma, but in order to understand someone and get to know them properly, you got to know where they've been. Who they are today is the sum of all their life experiences. And you want to understand how they got to this place today, right here in front of you, in order to say you get to know them and you understand whether or not this person is someone you want to spend the rest of your life with.
There's too many people in the world. There's too many factors
for
us to just be
soulmates.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to work together.
That's like winning the lottery. I mean,
Exactly. Really?
Right.
Like, yeah. So I was keeping it. I was maybe a little too
Insensitive.
no, well, maybe, but too just real.
Yeah.
You know, instead of fairy tale.
Yeah.
No,
You're not lying though.
not at all.
But that doesn't mean you're not in for.
Not at all. As a matter of fact, what is a soul? What is that?
It's a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's a concept that's been propagated, like in love, that we've adopted and creates an unrealistic expectation that we look for, and when it's not present, we feel something is wrong.
Yeah, we've allowed that to condition ourselves to that concept being a governance.
So they also talk about soulmates, and I get what they're saying, that there's 7 billion people in the world and you can fall in love with somebody. I get all that. But for me, a soulmate is someone who accepts you, understands you, empathizes with you, recognize that you have flaws. And in spite of all that, they still make the choice, and that's the key. They make the choice to love you unconditionally and encourage your growth. Who wouldn't want that? Right? Don't we all strive for something like that? I mean, maybe not everybody. I don't know. You and your freaking leak situationship lifestyle, that's your choice. More power to you. But most of us are looking for that. So what do you think? Is it wise to marry someone you're not in love with? Or do you feel like that's something that should be something that's required if we're going to make a lifelong commitment? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This was a great conversation. I look forward to talking to you again.